There we go. So good morning. Welcome, everyone. So this is CISS 100 and Introduction to Computing and Information Sciences. I'm Professor James Luby. I'll let you know that I was department chair for 20 years prior to stepping back to faculty in 2020. And as a result, I created essentially the curriculum as you see it today and all the articulation agreements with four-year schools and things like that, local businesses. So I offer, if I can assist in any capacity that extends beyond this course, going into the curriculum, into transfer, things like that, let me know. And this is an open invitation throughout your studies here at Hudson Valley. Okay, I'm going to start with really just today an introduction to the D2L Brightspace environment and the structure of CISS 100. I'm starting here at the Hudson Valley main screen. This is again hvcc.edu. And to get to D2L, I know it. Everybody's in the class already, but I'm recording this. So you would go to I am a student. And then here's the system access for students. And there are many things here. Office 365, just so you know, of course, is Microsoft Office that can be completed online. So it's a cloud service. We'll talk about that in this course. And then D2L, of course, is right here. Okay, so that is this environment. Now, of course, the Zoom screen kind of obscures where I need to go in my menu system here. So I'm just going to say now we are in D2L. You will, of course, and everybody here is signed in. So you went through the Hudson Valley single sign-on SSO process. And we'll be talking about single sign-on in this course as well and how that is affected. And you're going to see something like this. This, of course, is my faculty perspective, the courses I'm teaching. And we'll talk about web portals and permissions and authorizations, things like that in the upcoming weeks. And I'm going to jump into our section. So this is CISS 100-332. This is a hybrid section, as you know. We have 2 hours in class via Zoom each week, and then the other 2 credit hours are performed online. And we moved to this structure actually over 10 years ago. It worked very well. This way we don't have to give quizzes in class. They can be completed at the student's discretion. So this is the main screen. So you're seeing something like this. I actually prefer a listing. I'm old school computer science, and I'll give you more of my background here as the semester proceeds. So I always go through the content. It's just more straightforward for me. Again, I've actually never liked icons. I'm real old school computer science, NASA. I'll talk about that. So here we are, and I've clicked on the day one course information, syllabus, and resources. And this is where everyone should begin. So this is essentially the opening framework, the structure of the course. I urge you to read the opening introduction because, again, the world has changed and it's changing even quicker now. And we'll be talking about the disruption that AI is causing and various other factors. I'm going to go back to the course directions, which is essentially what we need to complete each week. And I'm going to jump to first the syllabus. Okay, so that is here because that has the textbook information. So here is the standard syllabus. It comes from actually the course outline, which is a institutional kind of formatting. We see it's a 4 credit hour course, 4 contact hours. Now, note, you'll hear me refer to, in all higher education, refer to the Carnegie Mellon Unit, the CMU. And I'll talk about acronyms here in a minute, too. The Carnegie Mellon Unit was developed, of course, by Carnegie Mellon University on how to accredit and ascribe credits to particular courses. So it really is a standard. Note that a 4 credit hour course, as defined by Carnegie Mellon, will require 4 hours in class. And of course, we have 2 hours, of course, in class and then the 2 hours online, but also an additional minimal 4 hours. So essentially, you have an hour outside of class for every hour inside of class. So please consider, okay, that this course will take minimally 8 hours per week. And really kind of well in excess of that. Now that diminishes or decreases over time. But in the beginning, computer science is very difficult for many students. First, the language. We use terms that are very common, okay, in our everyday language. Reference. Everybody knows what a reference is, right? Not in computer science, okay? In computer science, a reference is a computer address. And this can be in memory, it can be in storage, it can actually be in an internet address as well. But the problem or the difficulty that students face, of course, they're reading on a reference and you just kind of proceed. You're thinking, oh, a library reference. No, if we don't understand at the discrete level that they are actually referring to a computer address, we're kind of missing everything that follows that word. Gateway. Everybody hears gateway. I know what a gateway is. Probably not in computer science. In computer science, a gateway is a specific internet device that connects two dissimilar or disparate networks. So again, you're just reading on gateway, and students think they know what it means when quite often they do not. The other thing about computer science, it must be learned sequentially. It's foundational. What we do is we look at the abstract, and then increasingly go into more and more detail. And the issue here is, of course, you could pick up a psychology text, turn to chapter 7 and read it, and it would probably make sense to you as long as it was an introductory psychology text that wasn't really citing, previous knowledge. That is not the case in computer science. We must learn this sequentially. We must continually build on our foundation of concepts and applications. Okay, so this course, hopefully, and this is the most difficult or challenging piece in instructing introductory computer science, is it's not just learning the concepts, but it's learning the processes that we need to know how to learn the new concepts. And this is new to everyone. We all go through this learning curve, okay? And it's for lack of a better word, it's a slap in the face for all of us. It takes many rereadings, many continual rereadings, because as we reread the material, it's like, oh yeah, I missed that. And every piece of information is critical to our successfully progressing on in this discipline. Okay. I'll do this, by the way. I'll digress into hopefully good applications on how to learn this content. Because again, nobody has ever taught today's students how to read with this discrete and exacting attention to detail that is necessary to succeed in this discipline. Okay, my office hours, typically 9 to 10, 10 to 11, they're very much open. Okay, if you cannot make these, and again, they're via Zoom or email, just let me know and we'll arrange to meet at any point. Email is the best way to contact me. And please use your email client, whether it's Outlook, Mac Mail, whether it's a web-based client. Please email me from that rather than D2L. There are many issues, we've found many issues with the D2L email system. I will not get the emails, and then students are wondering why I haven't responded. But I also can't respond to a D2L generated email. If you look at the source and destination addresses that are coming from D2L, it's a random generated string, okay? I need to see your email address, and it has to be Hudson Valley, okay? We'll talk about FERPA regulations down the line because that is computer science as well. But I can only respond to emails that come from the Hudson Valley email, that source address. Here is the text. It is required, okay? You cannot pass this course without the text. Now, on that note, I bring it up to date quite a bit. We're still on the 16th edition, okay, which is kind of older, but also less expensive. And again, the basic foundational elements of computer science have not changed. Of course, the boundaries are being pushed, computer vision, AI, things of this nature, robotics, but really those are advanced concepts. So sticking with a foundational text is appropriate. Note that MindTap is not required. That's the publisher's extra something, their technology piece. And I don't think students need to be paying for that. We have our own piece with what we're going to be doing with the Linux labs that actually goes far in advance, far beyond what the publisher does. So that is that. Again, please read the syllabus. So I'm not going to just kind of reread everything here. Our textbook. For Linux, we do have a Linux component, and I'll introduce that in a minute. And Linux texts are free, and they are located in the Linux labs. So I will show you where those are as well. But there are some optional Linux resources I do provide here. The course description, attendance. Attendance is not mandatory. Hopefully you can make the sessions. I do record every lecture or everything we do here, and I post these to YouTube and I embed the links in D2L. So should you miss a lecture, if you want to watch it, feel free. And I do encourage that. I present a lot of other information that goes far beyond the text, both conceptual and applications, and especially with what's going on in today's society. Students with disabilities, of course, should register with the Center for Assistance in Assistive Technologies, CAT for short. I'll talk about acronyms again here shortly. It seems they're pervasive today. Behavioral objectives and a general outline, okay, of what we will be doing here. And again, here are the Zoom instructions. So again, this is all in the syllabus. I do provide recommendations for taking the quizzes. D2L, we'll talk about W3C compatibility. And all applications today should be W3C compliant. And that goes both ways. It's on the browser side, but it's also on the application side. D2L does not work well with some other browsers like Brave, things like that. And I'm a Brave browser user. Of course, the preferred browsers are Chrome, Safari, Firefox. Okay, a quick note on the grade computation. As you can see, quizzes are 60%. The Linux labs and discussion boards are 15%. And the final project is worth 25%. Now, if students remain on pace, and that's all it requires is to remain on pace for the Linux labs, I guarantee you that you will have all 15 of these points because, of course, you're going to, should you have an error, you just correct it and resubmit. So you can be guaranteed of that. The final project, there are three parts of the final project. There's the final project submission, a final project discussion board, and then an ethics discussion board. And again, the final project does require that all Linux labs be in and accepted. For the final project, if you comply with the discussion board requirements for the final project in ethics, I essentially guarantee you full credit on this. So please consider most students actually have 25 out of 25 points, sometimes 24 out of 25, etc., as long as they comply with the requirements for what the discussion board requirements. With this, you're essentially guaranteed 40 out of 40 points going in, and your final grade, final average, will resolve to the quizzes. But please consider, if you have 40 out of 40 points, if you get a B or better on the quizzes, on the average, you're going to have an A. A C or better on the quizzes, you're going to have a B, okay? Again, I've weighted it so that the Linux labs and final project actually buoy everyone's grades, okay? As long as you remain on pace. Students that fall behind have extreme difficulty catching up, especially because they often get hurried. So they try to read through the Linux labs and the required reading once, and that is insufficient. In the later subsequent Linux labs, you're going to have to read through many, many times. And that's consistent with what we do in computer science. Okay. So I won't say any more on that. I'm going to go back to the content area, that is the day one course info, syllabus, and resources. Now, I'll introduce this in a minute. There is a opening quiz on this course information. It's really just to make sure that everyone has read the syllabus, they're aware of the framework and what's required. The quiz can be taken over and over, so you can pad your grade and get a 20 out of 20 on it. But that is rather important. Okay, the course directions. I'll jump into there. So these are the general course directions for the entire course. As we see, the course runs in this semester, fall 24 semester, until December 18th, the Wednesday at 5 p.m. I'll send out an email every Sunday. It may be a Saturday if I'm traveling on Sunday and I can't send it out Sunday morning. I'll send it a day early. So every Sunday, I will send out an email indicating what lecture module we're going to cover for that week. Typically, we cover one lecture module, and I'll abbreviate this as an LM per week. But there is one exception with lecture module 2. And I do this necessarily to create an adaptive environment. Sometimes we slow down, sometimes we speed up, depending on what's going on in the world, what's going on with everybody's learning. But typically, it's one lecture module per week. And again, I'll send out an email on this. I'll show you the lecture modules too. So it's very straightforward. Everyone should get this pretty quickly. So what is required for each lecture module, essentially each week? First thing you should be doing is reading the corresponding chapter in the textbook, that Understanding Computers textbook. And the lecture module numbers do correspond to the chapter numbers. So lecture module 1 corresponds to chapter 1, lecture module 2 to chapter 2, etc. Please read that in advance of a presentation if you're coming to class. And note that we really should be reading each chapter twice. This is that continual rereading, learning the processes that are necessary to, succeed in this discipline. You will have a quiz on that textbook chapter. And the quizzes are created by the publisher. We as faculty get a test bank, things like that. I try to get rid of the ambiguous questions and answers. I try to clean it up as best as possible. But note these are coming from the publisher. And I try to take out the got you questions that the publisher will put in too. So I try to keep it just strictly to the required or critical content. The quizzes are due by Sunday night at 9 p.m. So again, I'm sending out an email on Sunday to inform students what's coming the next week. We're going to cover lecture module 1 this week. You'll, of course, proceed through lecture module 1 this first week and make sure that everything is submitted by Sunday at 9 p.m. So essentially, the lecture modules are open weekly from Monday through Sunday. Of course, you can work ahead. In many areas, that's actually beneficial, the Linux labs, things like that. But what you don't want to do is work ahead and just kind of wash your hands of it. Oh, I'm done with that. I'm done with Linux Lab 8. I can take a couple weeks off before Linux Lab 9. Just like mathematics, over the summer, we see that every year with mathematics and students. If they're not doing math all summer, they come back in September and they're, a little behind where they finished in May. So please recognize that. You can work ahead, that's fine. But if you work ahead, you kind of have to repeatedly do it. Now you're going to understand the material much better if you do that. So that's up to you. Okay. Note that there will be areas, and I've in the lecture modules, and again, this is going to be very straightforward in a minute as soon as I open up lecture module 1 and show you. At the bottom, you will see some optional resources. They're optional. Okay. Use them as you see fit. Okay. Linux labs. Each lecture module will have an associated Linux lab. And again, these two correspond with the lecture modules, just like the chapters, okay? Lecture module 1 is chapter 1 from the primary textbook. Lecture module 1 has Linux Lab 1. Lecture module 2 has Linux Lab 2. Now, in Linux lecture module 2, there are actually 2 Linux labs, Linux Lab 2A and Linux Lab 2B. So, and I'll address that when we get to lecture module 2, which will be, another week away. For Linux Lab 1, and this is detailed in the lecture module 1 directions, it's just reading. Okay, so there's nothing to submit this first week for the Linux Lab. So just letting you know that. Linux Labs are graded pass fail. 0 means fail, 1 means passed. Everyone must complete the Linux Labs 100% complete. And this is necessary again in this discipline because again, it's foundational and sequential. Everything we do in, say, Linux Lab 2A will again be used in Linux Lab 2B. So we can't proceed if we have some missing information in our Linux lab, in our Linux knowledge. So that's the reason for the pass fail. Now, you can resubmit. So if there's an error in a Linux lab, it'll come back as a 0, as a fail, but don't take that to heart whatsoever. It just means something was incorrect. It needs to be corrected and resubmitted. We just need to make sure that you have every concept that is required moving forward, because you'll continually use. We're going to continually build on our foundational framework in the Linux labs. There are no deductions for the resubmissions, things like that. You can resubmit as many times as you want or as necessary. So again, just take that for what it is. Some lecture modules have a discussion board. Okay. Again, I'm going to use the acronym DB. Lecture module 1 has one. DB1 is the classmate introductions. The discussion boards will have, if there are any required parameters or required information. For this first week, the first discussion board, it's just an introduction. And share whatever you're comfortable with. There's no obligation to provide a lot of information. You do have to submit. If you're uncomfortable with it, completely, just say, "Hi, I'm James." Done. Okay, you're getting full credit. Okay. The next discussion board, I think, is discussion board 6. So DB6, that is in lecture module 6. The following that, there'll be a discussion board 9. That's in lecture module 9. So again, not every lecture module will have a discussion board. And the discussion boards, again, will have kind of instructions with them. We'll talk more about that. Again, for any students that have disabilities, you must register with the CAT, okay, the Center for Assistance in Assistive Technologies. And once you do that, then contact me and we will work up what needs to be done for that. At the bottom of those content areas, you're going to see a resource that says CAT quizzes, okay? These are solely for students that have registered with the CAT, the Center for Assistance and Assistive Technologies, and have contacted me. Regular students cannot take these questions. And if you are a CAT student, you'll take these quizzes and not the quizzes in the lecture modules, okay? The reason being is the quizzes are the same. They have different criteria, but it would not be fair to see the quiz, right, and its answers, and then take it for credit. So you get one or the other. If you're not registered with CAT, you take the quizzes in the lecture module. If you're registered with the CAT, you take the CAT quizzes. Okay. So recommendations, you've heard me say this about 5 times already. Computer science must be learned sequentially. Okay. I cannot impress upon everyone about this enough. Computer textbooks, misread by the uninitiated. I spoke about this. Again, we use words that are just common to everyday English, but they have specific, exacting meanings in computer science. And I can go on and on. I spoke about references. I spoke about gateways. There are many, many more. Acronyms. Okay. This discipline uses acronyms extensively. It's out there in everyday language too, of course. And it's what we do. To some extent, I apologize for this. Okay. There is no shame whatsoever if you don't know an acronym. If I use an acronym and I try to define them, whenever I use a new acronym, I do hope to define it. But if I use one, please ask me, and you don't understand what it is, please ask me. Stop me. You can interrupt at any point, stop me and ask me what that acronym means. That is actually, I do that in my dealings with information technology services, because acronyms are popping up every day in this discipline. And some tech will use a term and I'll have to stop and wait, what does that mean? And they'll define, oh, okay, fine. You create a new acronym for that concept. Great, I understand. Which again goes along with that sequential, foundational way that we learn this discipline. I cannot move on if I have any misunderstanding about a concept or application. Okay. As I said, one of the challenges in getting into this discipline. It's not just learning the concepts of computer science, but it's learning the processes that we need to learn the concepts. Okay. Again, a lot of this has to do with the terminology, that exacting, precise nature of it. But again, we must reread. And we quite often don't have to do this in other disciplines. Probably mathematics we do, especially getting into calculus, the more advanced mathematics, we have to reread this material over and over. But if you look at a sociology text, my undergrad, I'm going to read that chapter once. I got it. Okay. There were things in my undergrad in computer science I had to read 10, 20 times. And again, this isn't really apparent except in, say, mathematics, right? Mathematics, we have new symbols, new nomenclatures, things like that, that immediately, kind of put us off guard. Okay. Oh, wait, what is that? And I'm focusing on one line for however long it takes me to understand it. Okay. Again, a lot of computer science, it's just written out. It looks like narration, text. Okay. But again, each individual word may have an exacting definition that we must understand to proceed. Okay, so D2L Brightspace, it's a learning management system. Here we go. Yeah, another acronym. Won't get into that much now. Okay, login. Everybody's logged in at this point. Zoom information. So those are the directions. Sorry about scrolling. So I'll jump back to the day one course information. Okay, so I covered the syllabus and I covered the course directions. I'm not going to just read this. It's a short blurb on the Linux labs, just a general introduction. Please read this. Short introduction on the discussion boards. I kind of covered this, but please read it. Email requirements. First, please email me from your email client, whether you use Outlook, whether you're a web client, whether you're using Mac Mail, whatever it is, please email me from that. Please do not use the course tool email, the D2L email tool. The reason being is it comes from a nondescript mailbox. It's just a random generated string, and it may or may not get to me. We've encountered cases where students have emailed me or emailed other faculty, and from D2L, it just doesn't get to them. And then the student, of course, is left hanging without a response. The other thing is I cannot respond to an email that's generated by D2L. It doesn't go back to your email address. It goes into D2L in this other mailbox, which may or may not be available. Please email me directly, j.luby, at hvcc.edu. We'll talk about this, by the way, username and domain, okay, because we need to be very specific. And email me from the client of your choice, whatever you use for mail. So, second, email formatting, subject lines. Okay. Again, no one has ever taught today's students how to proceed with this. From this point on, we are IT professionals, okay? You are information science professionals. Think about a class, if you will, and this applies to the workplace, okay? I send out an email. Lecture module 2 is open. And everyone just hits reply, right? My inbox is filled with 150 emails where the subject line is all the same. RE, what I wrote, LM2 is open, okay? It doesn't give me any context. And students will ask something about the textbook or ask something about this, asking, problems with a quiz, problems with whatever, okay? There's nothing in that subject line that tells me what it is. So I'm moving through my emails and I realize, wow, I think this is the 7th person that just had a problem with the quiz. But I go back and I'm trying to find the other 6. I have to open up each email, okay? Think about this from a work perspective, your boss, okay? Your supervisor. And they have a team of 20 people. They send something out, everybody responds. Your supervisor, you've just made their job more difficult. They have to go back through the emails. Oh, yeah, they had this problem too. They had this problem. Who is the supervisor going to promote? The employee who makes their job easier or the employee who makes their job more difficult? Okay, so it's very straightforward. Also, though, search. Today's, information framework is run by search. So we tried to provide as much information to enhance later searchability. So email requirements. Email me at j.luby@hvcc.edu. Email me from your preferred email client. Please provide a reasonable, applicable subject line. Okay. I can see your name. That's fine. But CISS 100 would help because I do have several sections. I'll get emails from students. Hi, professor, I'm having problems with this week's assignment. Okay. Are you in this course, this section, or this section? They won't even tell me which assignment it was. This week's, last week, is an assignment overdue? So you have to look at this from the perspective of the person that is receiving it. Okay. We try to provide, and I'll introduce this now, to be actionable. Okay. And we'll cover this. Information must be complete, accurate, timely, and relevant. And you'll hear me present this several times. If we're missing any one of these pieces, the information isn't really actionable. We have to guess, and we do not guess in computer science. Okay. True, false, on, off, 0 and 1. I'll save my background, by the way, is artificial intelligence. I was on a NASA fellowship, so I'll talk more about that because getting into artificial intelligence, we do a fuzzy logic in several things that it may not be just strictly true or false. Okay, so as an example, an example subject line, CISS 100, 300. So I provided the course, the name, who I am, and what I'm asking about. LL3 assistance needed. It lets me identify. And again, if I see my inbox with all the subjects and I see that 5 people are having, issues with a specific Linux lab, I can actually look at my instructions too. Is there any way I could have improved that? Could I make it more clear? Okay. Because that's the other thing that we do in this discipline is we strive for continual improvement. Okay. And we'll talk about this when we get to programming, web design, etc. Okay. I do recommend you have an email signature set up in whatever client you have. Okay. And by the way, another thing on emails, and we see that more and more. And again, we're living in this text-driven environment. We use white space in email, in business communications, not just one big block, lengthy narration. Try to break it up. Okay. It just looks more professional. And we'll talk about that too. I do run, by the way, the department's internship program. And there we really work on information design and communication as well. So you might as well get a head start on it and start looking at that framework as well. Okay, going back to the course information resources. And you'll see this in the opening introduction as well. Emergent disruptive change. I'm going to have you read this, okay? I'm not going to go over it, but please read this to understand really where we are and how quickly things are happening. And we're going to look at humans' ability to adapt as well. Humans' ability to adapt to new technology, new events, things like that is really linear. It's a very small slope too. Whereas what's going on in today's technology environment, of course, it's an asymptotic curve. It's advancing quicker than our ability to understand and adapt to this new disruptive environment that we're living in. Okay, I'm going to go back to content, and now I'm going to quickly cover, I'm going to try to go back to content, lecture module 1. Okay, so this is what's due this week. Okay, the first thing you should do with every lecture module is read the directions. And pretty much it's just going to, and I'm not going to open that up, it's going to tell you in this lecture module 1, read chapter 1. You will have to take a quiz on this chapter 1 material. Okay. I do provide a topic introduction. And again, you'd think that you'd do the topic introduction first. No, I'd read the directions first. Topic introduction. I'm going to introduce not only the chapter, but other things we need to consider, new events that are taking place in society and business. The other thing, and that was back in that emergent technology piece that I just showed you in the day 1 info. We talk about the business IT society triangle. business, IT, society. Okay, three vertices. Because any change to one of these vertices drives changes in the other two. As a real quick example, the cell phone, and it really today's modern cell phone, to where we essentially saw the convergence of a phone with a camera. Okay, changes in business. I think it was around 2008, the Chicago Tribune, maybe 2012, fired all of their staff photographers because their reporters could use their phones. The phones had evolved so much that the picture quality was sufficient for their interviews, things of that nature. So again, the convergence of the cell phone, the integration of a cell phone with a camera drove a business change. But societal changes. People now had a camera with them at all points, which was good and bad. You could, of course, take pictures of new events, but of course, people would start taking pictures in locker rooms, children's playgrounds, things of this nature, which is not good. So, of course, new policies, new laws had to be put into place. So that drove a change in society. Okay. And there's always going to be a lag, especially if it comes out first in IT. There's always going to be a lag in the changes or the adaptations of business and society. It's kind of different if something occurs in business. We need new regulations on financial institutions. What's going to take time to develop those IT applications? It's really when the IT drives that things can result in ways that we may not have foreseen. Linux Lab, okay. Here are the first Linux Lab 1 instructions, and here are the two textbooks that we will be using. I recommend you download these. These are in a PDF format. You can access them online, that's fine. But of course, if you continually access them online, you need this continuing connection to the server. So I do recommend you download the PDF and keep it local on your device. So in the directions, of course, lecture module 1, read chapter 1, take quiz 1. There's a first discussion board. And again, as I mentioned, the DB1 classmate introductions, there will be instructions there. For this first discussion board, again, if you're uncomfortable providing any information about yourself, just say, I am James. You get full credit, okay? But we have to recognize, too, our professional networking begins here today. We can't be specialists, experts in everything. It's very rare you'll have a network engineer as a expert in database administration or other areas. We need to rely on our colleagues, and our networking really does that. So I do recommend you participate in this well. You'll have this quiz that I mentioned, intro and syllabus quiz. That was on the day 1 information. Just make sure you've read the syllabus, you understand the framework of the course moving forward. And of course, quiz 1. Now, the intro and syllabus quiz, you have as much time or as many attempts as you want. Okay. It's open book. It's all open book to some extent. Quiz 1, chapter 1. So the textbook quizzes. These are timed and you get a single attempt. Do not close the window. Do not hit the back button. Do not hit the refresh button because it will lock you out of the quiz. It'll take it as you submitted the quiz. These quizzes are necessarily timed because if it was just open, you could just look up every answer. Students would just Google every question. And that's not what we need. Also, that will not take place in industry. If you're out there in an interview and they ask you a question, you hear it go, wait a minute, let me look that up on my phone. Okay. That's not acceptable. Okay. You're going to be evaluated every day forward once we're in this discipline. Okay. If you are in a meeting to become a consultant, they're going to ask you questions. Again, you cannot open your phone up. Wait a minute. Let me check that. Oh, I understand. We have to have that knowledge within us. Okay. That foundational knowledge. At first, the times are going to seem very quick, but over time, they're going to get easy. They're going to get very much easier. So just take that. It's part of the learning process that is required in this discipline. Okay. I do provide the PowerPoint presentations that I teach from. I apologize for using the PowerPoint, but they keep me on track. Otherwise, I can go off track pretty easily. I've quite a bit of experience. So that's all I'm going to cover today. It's the framework of the course. Are there any questions? If not, that's all I have for today. I'll see you tomorrow, and we will cover chapter one in its entirety. It's really just an introduction from the textbook tomorrow. And of course, if you have any questions or need to email me, of course, let me know. So I have. Have a great day, guys. Thanks.